Good afternoon. Today we are starting our last unit of the year. This is the last one. Yay! That is exciting. End of the year. No, there are not 100 objectives. Oh goodness, that would be a lot to cram in the next few weeks. So friends, we can do it. Oh goodness, this is all being recorded, friends. This unit, you will notice our last unit were all POs. This unit are all COs. So while we will have a test on this unit, and it definitely matters for your learning and for your grade, I need us to focus on getting all past due POs and all POs from this last test. We need to get those mastered because you have to have them mastered to go on into algebra. Math builds on itself. I was talking to Rosa in the car yesterday, and I said, I passed back those pre algebra tests, and there are some people that were a little frustrated with, oh my goodness, when am I going to have to use this math? I don't use this in my daily life. And she laughed and said, I was explaining to her which objectives we were on, because she had this math classes with Mr. Schultz at our old school. So she knows exactly what I was talking about, which objectives they were. And she said, Mom, you have to tell your students they will use this math all the time, and it will get more and more complicated. And I've told you guys this before. This is not the first time I've talked to Rosa about this. Not the first time I've shared with you that I talked with Rosa about this. She's like, seriously, oh my goodness, my middle school self did not understand how important this math was. Now that I'm 19 and in college, taking college calculus, I get it. It really does build on itself. And as much as when I was in 6th grade, I was one of those kids that hated showing my work and doing every single step, and I hated it with a passion because I could do mental math. Oh my goodness, I wish I had learned then to make it a habit. It would have made my life so much easier. Please stop, Peyton. Thank you. Truly, this is coming from somebody who was in your situation just a few short years ago and is still in the academia math world learning. It seems like a pain, but all these little details really do matter. And when we have to do the practice work and do the retakes and do the practice work and do the retake so we can master it, it's going to help you in the future. And she said to me, well, Mom, do you require that they show their work? And I said, I actually don't require it, but I want them to learn that they need to do it. Because I have some students who like to try to cut corners and do the mental math and say, but I can handle it. Sometimes we need to learn from our mistakes. I'm the kind of person where you tell me what to do and I say, well, that's what I have to do. My sister, she's the type of person who has to learn from her mistakes, and she doesn't get it until the mistake happens and she goes, yep, you're right. I really do have to do that. So sometimes we have to make those mistakes in order to learn the lesson and want to show our work so we can master it better. So that's the reason why I haven't said you have to show your work on the test or you will get it wrong. In high school calculus, Rosa said they would mark it wrong if we didn't show our work. Like, it would just be flat out wrong. Even if we got the answer correct, because they didn't know if we cheated or not. We had to show our work to prove that we understood it. Now in college, she wants to show her work because she has gone up to her professor and said, I did all of this correct. And they said, yep, I'm going to give you so many points. You might not get 100% on that problem, but I'm going to give you 85% of those points because you do understand what you're doing. So it really, really, really behooves you to, one, learn and master these objectives because it will help you in algebra next year. It'll help you in geometry, it'll help you in pre-calc, it'll help you in calc, it'll help you in college math. You need this math to learn the steps so you don't make these same mistakes over the next few years. Learn it now as a sixth grader, develop those good habits. This unit that we are working on now, not gonna lie, a little bit easier. Ooh. So we can focus on those our objectives that we need to retake, mastering all that, and we can end the year kind of breathing a little sigh of relief. Some of this stuff is going to be review. So that doesn't mean we rush through it and go fast, because what happens when we rush through it and go fast? You make mistakes, okay? We don't want to blow it. We want to be responsible closing out this year. So today we are starting with identifying and labeling points, lines, and planes. So a point is a dot used, I'm writing sloppy, used to represent a location. It is always written using a capital letter. So, for example, we have your dot, and we're going to call it A. That point is A. So this is point A. If we have a shape and we have points at every vertex, this would be figure. We're going to use those points to name our figure W, X, Y, Z, with those capital letters. So when we're talking about those points, the capital letter, when we're using it to name a shape, so we know which shape we're referring to, it is all capital letters. A line connects two or more points it is straight, it goes on forever, and it cannot be measured. Why can't it be measured?
It's infinite.
It goes on infinitely. It goes on forever. So you can't measure it because it keeps on going. So an example, we have my 2 points, A and B, and my line connects those 2 points. It is a straight line, and I have those arrows on it to show that it is a line and not a what? Segment. So I put the arrows on it to show it is a line. It will go on forever. When we label it, when we labeled our point, we called it point A. To label this line, we write AB because that's our 2 points that were connected. And above it, I draw my little line to show that it's line AB. Rowan.
Why are the letters capitalized?
Because that the lowercase letters represent other things, like variables, but when we're talking, this is more geometric. When we're talking about lines and points, it's the lowercase letters will represent other things, like formula, like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, it represents, the variables become the measurements of things, so those are lowercase. Whereas our points, we know it's that point because it's the capital letter. Yes.
When these usually be in a separate one, so a separate
So-
formula?
If I have, remember that right triangle that we talked about when we talked about the Pythagorean theorem? If I labeled all of my points, they would be capital letters. But my side measurements were A, B, and C. So when we have a shape, we have the name of the shape is based off of our capital letters that are at each point. But the lowercase letters represent those variables that we don't know what those measurements are. It was a good question. Gabe,
So like you see, like capitals are at like the corners, and then like the lowercase, so they have like the line shape.
they're the measurements. So think of the lowercase as measurements, as variables. Those capitals are going to be our points. I've never had anybody ask me that question before. I had to think through that answer. Okay. Shh. Going back to our line, we could also call it line BA with that line on top of it. It doesn't matter which direction we go, it's the same line. AB, BA, we're talking about the exact same line. Yes.
Do we have to put like the capital A, B, or B, A on the test, or let's just put like a lowercase for one thing?
Yes, if we're talking about a point, it has to be a capital.
Okay, if we don't, it would be up.
Correct. If you put it as a lowercase, it will be marked wrong because it's in our definition that the points always use a capital letter. So you always have to put it as a capital. Good question. Now, if I had that cursive L there, I could call this line L. So if I have a letter off to the side like this, it could be called line L. So line AB, I also have that lowercase, this is a cursive L, standing for it. So the next vocab word is a plane. Not an airplane that we fly in. This is, we're talking more mathy, right? So what term did you use, Lucas? Coordinate plane. It is the plane, right? So it is that flat surface. So we have heard coordinate plane. Lucas, we are not doing that. We are in math and we are focusing. Guys, I don't want to see any of the goofiness that I'm seeing happen. I definitely know that I know what it is. Stop doing it. Focus on math. Okay? Seriously. A plane is flat. It's two-dimensional. Two-dimensional surface that extends infinitely. Just like that line goes on forever, our plane goes on forever. So when we think of that coordinate plane, sometimes we only have so many numbers on that graph. We know it keeps on going and going and going. The y-axis, the x-axis, they go on infinitely. That coordinate plane goes on forever. Our two-dimensional flat plane goes on forever. James?
If it's plain like a flat surface, shouldn't it be PLAIN?
No, because that is plain as in
Like a
nothing to it. It's a plain boring, simple things. Plain yogurt doesn't have anything added to it. That's a totally different word. That's an adjective. Shh. That's an adjective. We're not describing something. That's its name. So it's different. It's not a descriptor. It's a noun, not an adjective. Okay, an example of what a plane would look like drawn. Can I draw an entire plane on my paper?
Yes.
It goes on forever. I cannot draw the full plane. So what I do is I can draw a shape that's on that plane that represents the plane. In my plane, I can have points. I can have a name given to it, just like my line had that curse above. This one I have an R right here that's not next to a dot. So down in this corner, and it got blended in there. Down in this corner, I had a capital R, not by a dot, but over in the corner. So there are two different ways I could label this plane. How would I know that we're talking about this plane and not a different one?
Because
What can I use so I know I'm talking about this specific plane, Addie?
You can name it.
I'm using the information I'm given. Use the information that's given right there. How do I know that I am referring to this specific plane? What could I put? Try again, Addie.
ABC.
Yeah, I could call it plane ABC because those are the points in that plane. Shh. Nope. No. Remember when I said we're not being silly? I've already said why we can't do that. Because if you said, oh, plane Bob, and I had 5 planes there, how would I know which one is Bob? You have to use what you're given.
You name the other one.
Is that you, Henry? Just like up here, we could call it line L. We can call this plane R. Because R is not a point on the plane. R is in the corner there. We know, just like L is over to the side, R is in the corner. We could call it plane R, or we could use the points that are on the plane. Okay. So let's look at our work for today. How are we going to use
70 objectives.
So let's focus on what we're doing right now, not what's in the future. Let's focus on today. So we need to use the diagram for the following tasks. You need to label the plane N. Okay, it's not describing a point, so it is a lowercase. Notice how it's slanted. Okay, it's not just a lowercase n that is a measurement, a variable. It's a name. You need to label the points A, B, and C. You need to draw line AB, draw line BC, using this shape over here. So we're using this plane, this parallelogram. We're going to use that plane, and we're going to label and draw those things. Then you're going to draw your own plane M in this space and include 5 points and 3 lines. You figure out how that's going to work. You could only have 5 points and only have 3 lines. And then answer your questions on the bottom. Gabe.
Wait, would I for the draw A, B, and C, would I do like another line that or
Use your points in your lines. Use your points in your lines, but make sure it is a line and not a segment. So make sure you are drawing lines, not segments. Lauren.
being able to put any like A, B, and C anyway.
But use the points that you're getting. Kyle,
Do all 5 points have to be in a line?
no.
Oh, okay.
So you need to have 5 points and draw 3 lines out of those 5 points. You need to label them. Well, they have to be different lines, otherwise they would be the same and only counts as one. So yes, you have to have 3 lines showing on that plane. You have to have 5 points and label them all. Label everything. Label your plane so we know what your plane is. So I'm going to sign off on the video. If you have further questions, you're going to come talk to me. When you are done with this assignment, I need all eyes on me. My focus right now, because this is not an overwhelming assignment, this is what I can answer the little questions on and we can be done before class is done. My focus is on retakes for previous past due objectives and this last test we just got back yesterday. So I want to get all of our practice work corrected so we are ready to do retakes either tomorrow after school, Thursday after school, or Friday during the day. You know, if you have a pile of retakes you have to do, you're going to want to stay after one of those days so you can get them all done. But I need to be correcting practice work, so make sure you get your practice work turned in. I want to be working on practice work. I do not want to see people out of their desks. I do not want people being loud. We know my expectations during math class. Work on previous Khan Academy assignments, get practice works turned in, be responsible students, not socializing. If you have no math you have to do, it is study hall time, win time, it is silent time. You can work on your social studies presentation. You can work on something for Mrs. Gregory. You can work on the essay for Mrs. Gregory. If you have absolutely nothing to do, read a book for the book challenge. So for my friends watching at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.